The laughter echoed across the lavish banquet hall, a cascade of crystal chandeliers casting light on rows of finely dressed guests. My fingers trembled as I carried yet another tray of appetizers, each step a reminder of my humiliation. "Look at her," my mother's voice cut through the air, sharp and deliberate. She was perched on an elegant chair, her glass of champagne tilted as if mocking me. "Catering staff suits her better than a gown. At least she's useful here." A ripple of laughter followed her words. My sister, glowing in her wedding dress, didn't even glance my way. She was too busy basking in the compliments from guests who couldn't stop gushing over her perfect day. I clenched my jaw, my face burning under the scrutiny. As I placed the tray down, my mother's gaze pinned me in place. "Honestly, Clara, why don't you take some notes? Maybe next time you won't embarrass me with your life choices." I forced a tight smile, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Of course, Mom," I murmured, pretending not to notice the sneers around me. But inside, the fire was raging. Little did she know, her words would set off a chain of events none of them could ever predict. As I hurried to the back to compose myself, I felt eyes on me, intense and unwavering. Turning, I saw him. A man seated alone at a table, dressed in a tailored black suit that screamed power. His gaze was piercing, his expression unreadable. He raised his glass subtly, as if toasting me. Confused, I looked away, brushing off the moment. He was likely another guest amused by my plight. But something about him felt different. His presence was magnetic, and it unsettled me. "Hey!" came the sharp voice of the catering manager. "Quit dawdling. We've got tables to serve." "Yes, right away," I replied, stepping back into the chaos of the event. But the man's gaze lingered in my mind, a flicker of intrigue amidst the storm. By the time dinner was served, my patience had worn thin. My mother found every opportunity to belittle me. My sister joined in, smug in her role as the golden child. "Clara, can you grab some more wine?" my sister chirped with faux sweetness. "You're so good at serving." I shot her a glare but held my tongue. As I turned to leave, I bumped into the man from earlier. His presence was even more striking up close. "You deserve better than this," he said quietly, his voice calm yet authoritative. I blinked, taken aback. "Excuse me?" He smiled faintly, his gaze steady. "You'll see." Before I could respond, he slipped something into my hand, a sleek business card. Confused and intrigued, I pocketed it, not realizing that this simple exchange would change everything. The night dragged on, and my mother's taunts reached a fever pitch. She publicly scolded me for spilling a drink, drawing laughter from the crowd. Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to cry in front of them. It wasn't until I overheard my sister whispering about how pathetic I was that I finally snapped. "You know what?" I said, my voice steady but cold. "Enjoy your night. I'm done being your punching bag." Gasps rippled through the room as I removed my catering apron and threw it onto a table. My mother's face turned crimson, her anger barely contained. But before she could retort, the man in the suit stood up. All eyes turned to him as he approached me with calm authority. "I think Clara has had enough for one evening," he said, his voice commanding respect. The room fell silent as he placed a protective hand on my shoulder. "Clara, would you care to join me for a moment?" I hesitated, unsure of his intentions, but the sincerity in his eyes made me nod. As we walked out, I heard whispers ripple through the crowd. In the quiet corridor, he introduced himself. "My name is Adrian Sinclair. I'm a business investor, and I couldn't stand by while they treated you like that." "Why would you care?" I asked skeptically. "Because I see potential in you," he said simply. "And I'd like to offer you an opportunity." I stared at Adrian, my thoughts racing. Who was this man to waltz into my life, acting like a savior? But the warmth in his voice and the sharpness in his gaze hinted at something I couldn't ignore. An escape, a chance to reclaim my dignity. "What kind of opportunity are we talking about?" I asked, folding my arms as if to guard myself. Adrian smiled slightly, leaning against the wall with an air of ease. "I run a private investment firm. We focus on identifying talent, Not just in business, but in leadership, creativity, and resilience. You've been beaten down, but I can see it. You're stronger than you think. I scoffed. You got all that from watching me carry trays? No, he said calmly. I got it from the way you didn't crumble under their cruelty. That kind of resolve is rare. I can help you turn it into something extraordinary. The offer sounded too good to be true, but his sincerity was undeniable. Why would you help me? What's in it for you? Let's just say I've been where you are, and I know what it feels like to want a way out. His words hit like a bolt of lightning. Before I could second-guess myself, I found my voice. Okay, I'll hear you out. The moment I walked back into the banquet hall, all eyes were on me. Adrian walked beside me, exuding an aura that silenced the room. My mother's gaze darted between us, confusion and anger flashing across her face. What's this about? She demanded, her tone sharp. Adrian didn't flinch. This is about Clara's future. Something you've clearly never cared about. Her jaw dropped, and the room buzzed with murmurs. I turned to my mother, the weight of years of her scorn finally lifting from my shoulders. I'm done being your punching bag, Mom. You'll see what I'm capable of without you tearing me down. Before she could respond, I walked out with Adrian, leaving her and my sister fuming behind me. The car ride to Adrian's office was quiet but not uncomfortable. His presence was steady, grounding. When we arrived, I was stunned by the towering glass building. The lobby alone was more luxurious than anything I'd ever imagined. This is your company? I asked wide-eyed. He nodded. One of them. Let's get you started. Over the next few days, Adrian introduced me to his world. He didn't just offer me a job. He gave me a mentor who taught me everything from business strategy to public speaking. It was grueling, but for the first time in my life, I felt like I was building something meaningful. Weeks turned into months, and I transformed under Adrian's guidance. I discovered talents I never knew I had. A knack for negotiation, an eye for detail, and a drive that rivaled Adrian's own. He pushed me to my limits, but his belief in me never wavered. One day he handed me a file. This is your first solo project, he said. I want you to manage this client. They're tough, but I think you're tougher. I felt a surge of pride. For the first time, someone believed in me, not despite my flaws, but because of them. One evening, as I was preparing for a meeting, I received an unexpected invitation. My sister's baby shower. My first instinct was to decline, but Adrian encouraged me to go. Sometimes facing the past is the only way to move forward, he said. Reluctantly, I agreed. When I walked into the shower, heads turned. I was no longer the meek girl they'd mocked. I was confident, poised, and unrecognizable to them. My mother's smug demeanor faltered when she saw me. Clara, she said, forcing a smile. You look different. I replied, meeting her gaze. And I have you to thank for it. Confusion flickered across her face. Before she could respond, I turned to my sister, who looked equally stunned. Congratulations, I said, handing her a gift. I hope you're happy. My words were polite, but the undertone was clear. I didn't need their approval anymore. Months later, Adrian invited me to a gala where his firm was being honored. It was a dazzling event, attended by the city's elite. To my shock, my mother and sister were there, mingling with the crowd. When they saw me with Adrian, their jaws dropped. Clara? My mother sputtered. What are you doing here? Adrian stepped forward, his voice smooth as silk. She's one of my top executives. Didn't she tell you? The room went silent as the weight of his words sunk in. My mother's face paled, and my sister's smugness vanished. The air in the room felt heavy as Adrian's declaration echoed. My mother's lips parted as if to speak, but no words came out. My sister clutched her husband's arm, her face a mask of disbelief. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. The silence spoke louder than any words. I didn't realize you'd climbed so high, Clara, my sister finally said, her voice forced. How impressive. I raised an eyebrow. It's amazing what you can achieve when you're not constantly torn down. The tension was palpable as Adrian escorted me away. They'll stew in that moment for a long time, he said, smirking. I smiled for the first time in what felt like forever. Good. Though I was flourishing professionally, confronting my past had stirred old wounds. My mother's words and my sister's sneers had left scars that success couldn't immediately erase. Adrian noticed my unease. You can't let them live rent-free in your head, he told me one evening. They don't deserve that power over you. He was right, but I knew I needed closure, something definitive that would sever the hold they had on me. One day, Adrian handed me a file. This is a property acquisition deal we're pursuing. The current owners are in over their heads. It's your call whether we buy them out or partner with them. I froze when I saw the names on the file. My mother and sister. They were struggling financially, their lavish lifestyle crumbling under the weight of debt. The irony was almost poetic. What do you want to do? Adrian asked, his tone neutral. A million emotions surged through me. This was my chance to take control, to show them the power they never believed I could wield. I decided to arrange a meeting, ensuring it would be on my terms. When my mother and sister walked into the boardroom, their faces were pale with apprehension. They clearly hadn't expected to see me sitting at the head of the table. Clara, my mother stammered. What is this? This, I said, gesturing to the room, is the company that's about to save you. But it's going to come at a cost. My sister crossed her arms defensively. What cost? I leaned forward, my tone calm but firm. Respect. The negotiation was tense. My mother tried to assert herself, but the power dynamic had shifted. Every time she attempted to belittle me, I countered with facts and figures that left her speechless. My sister's smugness dissolved into desperation as the reality of their situation became clear. By the end of the meeting, they were forced to accept my terms. I offered them a lifeline, but it was on my conditions. They would sell the property and publicly acknowledge my role in saving them. You've made your point, my mother said through gritted teeth. Isn't that enough? I met her gaze steadily. Not yet. At the closing ceremony for the deal, I stood on the stage, delivering a speech about resilience and opportunity. My mother and sister sat in the audience, their expressions a mix of pride and humiliation. When I finished, Adrian approached me with a smile. That was powerful. It's not about revenge, I said, though part of me still savored the satisfaction. It's about reclaiming my story. In the months that followed, I focused on building a life that brought me joy. I traveled, invested in causes I cared about, and nurtured friendships that lifted me up. Adrian remained a constant presence, a mentor and friend who reminded me of my worth. Though I still interacted with my family occasionally, the dynamic had shifted. They no longer saw me as the scapegoat. I was someone they had to respect, and perhaps even fear. One day, my mother showed up at my office unannounced. She looked older, wearier, as if the weight of her actions had finally caught up to her. I owe you an apology, she said, her voice trembling. I didn't realize how much I hurt you. Her words stirred a mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to forgive her, but another part wasn't ready to let go of the pain. It's a start, I said cautiously. Over time, I allowed small gestures of reconciliation. My mother began attending therapy, and my sister admitted her jealousy had fueled much of her behavior. While things were far from perfect, there was a sense of progress. After solidifying my position in Adrian's company, I decided it was time to take on my own ventures. I proposed a project to Adrian, a scholarship fund for young women from disadvantaged backgrounds. To my surprise, he didn't just approve it. He made me the sole manager of the initiative. This is your legacy, he said, handing me full control. Make it something you're proud of. The scholarship fund became my passion project. I poured my heart into finding candidates, hearing their stories, and giving them the opportunities one never had. For the first time, I wasn't just building my career, I was building hope for others. One day, I found myself driving past the neighborhood where I'd grown up. The streets seemed smaller, the houses less imposing. It felt strange to be back, like visiting a distant memory. I stopped outside my childhood home and saw a young girl sitting on the steps, her eyes filled with the same longing I used to feel. I handed her a card for my scholarship program. You have more potential than you realize, I told her. Her smile reminded me of the power of kindness. It was a simple moment, but it reaffirmed my commitment to lifting others up. Months later, I received a surprising invitation. My sister's wedding anniversary celebration. Part of me wanted to decline, but Adrian's advice echoed in my mind. Sometimes the best way to show your strength is to face the people who once underestimated you. When I arrived at the event, the atmosphere was starkly different from the wedding where my humiliation had been a centerpiece. People greeted me with respect, and my family tread carefully around me. The whispers were no longer mocking. They were admiring. Toward the end of the evening, my mother pulled me aside. Her eyes were glassy, and her voice trembled. Clara, I don't know how to make this right. I took a deep breath, the weight of years of pain pressing against my chest. You can't undo what's been done, Mom, but you can start by being better. Her expression crumbled, and for the first time, I saw genuine remorse. I'll try, she said softly. It wasn't the grand apology I'd imagined, but it was enough for now. The anniversary celebration marked a turning point. While my relationship with my family would never be perfect, I found peace in setting boundaries and refusing to let their negativity define me. Adrian, ever perceptive, noticed the shift in me. You look lighter, he said one evening as we reviewed a project. Like you've let something go. I think I have, I admitted. It feels freeing. With my newfound clarity, I decided to take a leap of faith. I pitched an idea to Adrian, a startup focusing on empowering women in the corporate world. To my surprise, he didn't just agree. He insisted on being my first investor. You've proven yourself time and time again, he said. I trust you. Launching the startup was a whirlwind of challenges and triumphs, but it quickly gained traction. Seeing my vision come to life was a thrill I couldn't have imagined. A year later, I was invited to speak at a prestigious business conference. As I stood on stage, sharing my journey, I spotted my mother and sister in the audience. They looked proud, even awestruck. After the speech, my sister approached me, her voice soft. I'm sorry for how I treated you, Clara. I was jealous, but that's no excuse. Her apology was unexpected but genuine. It's in the past, I said. Let's focus on moving forward. Life continued to unfold in ways I couldn't have predicted. My startup flourished, the scholarship program expanded, and I began mentoring young women who reminded me of my younger self. Adrian remained a constant, his support unwavering. One evening, as we celebrated the company's latest milestone, he raised a toast. To Clara, the woman who turned adversity into opportunity and never looked back. Standing on the balcony of my penthouse, the city lights stretching out before me, I felt a sense of completeness. My journey had been painful, but it had forged me into someone I could finally be proud of. Adrian joined me, a glass of champagne in hand. So, he said, a twinkle in his eye, what's next? I smiled, my heart light. Whatever I decide, the past no longer held me captive. I was free to dream, to build, and to live on my own terms. And for the first time in my life, that was enough.